Hello, this is Dr. Michael Hart, and this is Chiafalo versus Washington, the case of faithless electors for College of Southern Nevada, Constitution Day. I'm Dr. Hart, and I'm a full-time professor of political science at CSN. Before I go on with my presentation, I would like to make a few acknowledgments. First and foremost, Department Chair Dr. William Eric Davis, who encouraged me after the first presentation that I did for CSN on Constitution Day in 2019. Dr. Robert Amera, the Events Committee Chair, and Dr. Kenneth Fernandez, our lead faculty, who offered generously his time and technical assistance in the facilitation of sharing this project with the CSN community. Supreme Court in constitutional controversies. When there's a dispute about the meaning of the Constitution, it may take a form of a legal case and reach the highest court in the country, the Supreme Court of the United States, or SCOTUS for short. Now, between 2007 and 2019, SCOTUS released opinions in 991 cases, averaging 76 cases per year. So that's relatively few cases considering that the court has an entire year to decide, although it works from the first Monday of October, usually until the end of June. Supreme Court began its work for the first time in history on February 1st of 1790, so recently we marked 230 years since the start of the work of the Supreme Court. Early on in its history, the court had very few cases to decide, and it was not the powerful institution that it is today. The Supreme Court gained great importance during the early decades of the 19th century, particularly after it held federal law unconstitutional for the first time ever in Marbury versus Madison in 1803, and then for the first time ever held a state law unconstitutional in Fletcher versus Peck in 1810. The court's proven record of shaping society makes it an incredibly powerful institution. Its power is underappreciated and underestimated by the general public. Now, continuing on this theme of Supreme Court and the public, the court's opinions come in different shapes and sizes, but the average size has been growing. The mean, or arithmetic average length, of the majority opinion has grown from 4,000 words to 6,000 words between 1951 and 2013. Opinions are loaded with jargon or precise legal language, but even more so with references to previous cases. It is common for a single Supreme Court opinion to cite 10 or more previous cases. So, this means the sheer length of opinions, the dry language used, and a long array of references to other cases make courts' opinions uninteresting and forbidding, very often to the general public. How is Chiafalo versus Washington different from a typical recent Supreme Court case? In this case, the majority opinion cites few prior cases, and only the knowledge of one case is really needed for people to understand what is going on in Chiafalo versus Washington. The majority opinion is well and clearly written. It was written by Justice Elena Kagan. The majority opinion is also relatively short. The case is very relevant during this particular year, 2020, because it is about presidential elections, and we are about to have a presidential election. Chiafalo versus Washington featured a unanimous decision. Every single justice of the Supreme Court signed on to the outcome. Now, in recent years, between 2000 and 2018 to be precise, 36% of all decisions have in fact been unanimous. Decisions are case outcomes. They have the same functions as, let's say, decisions in a boxing match or an MMA fight. They tell us who won and who lost, or if there's a draw. Decisions can be unanimous, or decisions can be majority. But court opinions are legal arguments that back up justices' decisions. Opinions can be unanimous, they can be majority, They can be plurality, concurring, or dissenting. Now, the difference between a unanimous and a majority decision is, of course, in a unanimous decision, everybody decides the same way. And if you have only a majority decision, that means at least a majority of 5 decided to rule in a particular way. Now, if you talk about the difference between unanimous opinions and majority opinions, then unanimous opinion is that opinion to which every single justice in the case signed on. There is no unanimous opinion in Chiafalo. Chiafalo is only unanimous decision. But opinion, there's a majority opinion and there's a concurrent opinion in Chiafalo versus Washington. Before we go on to the specifics of the case, I would like to say a few words about the concept that is at the center of Chiafalo, and that concept is Electoral College. The Constitution of the United States requires an indirect election of the president in which the popular vote is translated into the vote for president by the Electoral College. Electoral College is described in the Constitution in Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 3 and 5, and also in the 12th Amendment, the latter having replaced Clause 4 of Article 2, Section 1. So you are actually dealing here with 3 pieces of text. Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 3 and 5, that's 2 pieces of text, and the third one is the 12th Amendment. Now, how can we understand Electoral College? First, we can understand electors. Electors are people. They cannot be federal officials. This is clearly stipulated in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3. And also, in all presidential elections historically, since 1796, political parties choose their own electors. Each political party that is running a candidate for president in a given state chooses its slate of electors for that state. Federal statutory law controls when the presidential election takes place. The people vote on Monday after the first Tuesday of November, and then, based on popular vote results, electors vote on Monday after the second Wednesday of December. So the president technically, officially, is not even chosen until Monday after the second Wednesday of December. State law in each state controls the relationship between the popular vote and Electoral College vote in presidential elections. Thus, your vote really matters. But what also matters is exactly how the total popular vote in each state is translated into the Electoral College vote of that state. As of this recording, which is September of 2020, all states except Maine and Nebraska give the winner of the popular vote all of the Electoral College votes of that state. Maine and Nebraska give 2 Electoral College votes to the winner of the popular vote and allocate the remaining votes by congressional district. That is to say, each candidate gets as many Electoral College votes as the congressional districts they won. Now, what exactly happened in Chiafalo versus Washington? What happened was that out of 12 Democratic electors in Washington state, 4 of them were so-called faithless electors. They did not vote for the candidate to whom they pledged to vote. That candidate was the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton. Because of that, they were fined $1,000 each. Washington state is one of 32 states, plus District of Columbia, that passed laws to prevent faithless electors, but none had been enforced prior to 2016. And Congress, when accepting the results of Electoral College vote, has never refused to count faithless elector votes. Now, out of these 4 faithless electors who faced $1,000 fine for breaking their pledge, 3 of them, Peter Chiafalo, Levi Guerra, and Esther John, brought a lawsuit claiming the fine was unconstitutional. But based on what? What was the argument of these 3 faithless electors? in favor of their right to have discretion on how to cast their vote. They said it is based on the word electors, which is found in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, and the words electors and vote of the 12th Amendment. They asserted that these words presuppose discretion for electors to vote however they wished. They also stated that the framers wanted electors to have such discretion, and they cited Alexander Hamilton's Federalist Paper number 68. Exactly what was the constitutional question here for the Supreme Court to resolve? It was as follows. Can a state enforce a sanction against an elector who breaks their pledge to vote for the party nominee? And what constitutional law controls, what piece of constitutional law controls the answer to this question? Well, the answer is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3 primarily, and to a lesser extent, the 12th Amendment. The only thing that is relevant really in the 12th Amendment to this case is the word electors and also the words to cast ballot. So what does Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3 actually say? It says, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. So one thing to note here is the power of appointment that the state has. Each state shall appoint. And then it goes on to say, in such a manner as the legislature thereof, meaning of that state, may direct. So it is up to the legislature of any given state to decide how electors are to be appointed in that state. And then says that the number of electors equals to the number of senators and representatives to which the state is entitled. So, to illustrate how Electoral College works, I have this map from the election of 2016, and you can see on this map that different states have different number of Electoral College votes. For example, California has the most, 55, because it is the most populous state. The number of representatives in the House it has is 53, and of course it has 2 senators, just like every other state, so the total is 55. Nevada, in contrast, is a relatively small state given its population of roughly 3 million as of this recording. Nevada has 2 senators and 4 representatives, giving it 6 Electoral College votes in the 2016 election. So, the court in this case decided in favor of the state of Washington. As you already know, the decision was unanimous. The opinion was not. The majority opinion, written by Justice Kagan, said that the text of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, and also the long-standing practice of presidential elections, going back to the first election, allow the states to impose legal constraints on how electors can vote. So, Justice Kagan here turned to the twin pillars of her argument. That's the text, the textual argument, the text itself of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, but also to the idea that long-standing practice confirms or at least strongly suggests that that practice is constitutional. In other words, if it has been going on for generations, and in this particular case, for roughly 230 years, and it withstood the test of time, uninterrupted as a practice, that probably strongly suggests that the practice is in fact constitutional. Now, the majority opinion pointed out that Ray versus Blair, decided in 1952, already stated that the states may require electors to pledge that they will vote a particular way and to replace them with a substitute if they refuse. So all the court was doing in Chiafalo versus Washington was to extend the logic of the decision in Ray versus Blair to include the power of states to impose a legal sanction, such as a fine on faithless electors. Okay? So whether or not a state can in fact require a pledge had already been settled as early as 1952. And you may be wondering what the commotion is about then. Well, the commotion is about the claim that Chiafalo and his lawyer, Lawrence Lessig, made was that the word pledge is a moral pledge or a political pledge, similar to how political candidates pledge to support their party platform, that when states require electors to pledge, they're in fact asking for a political pledge, and they are not asking, or at least constitutionally they may not ask for a legal pledge which is backed up by a sanction. In fact, in his argument, Lawrence Lessig, arguing for Chiafalo, stated that sanction makes all the difference. The state may not impose a sanction, not even $1, including to Mr. Lessig's argument, on an elector who refuses to follow the pledge. The majority decision written by Justice Kagan stipulated that while some founders may have wanted the electors to have discretion when voting for president, and here she kind of answers the argument that Lawrence Lessig made about Hamilton's position. So she says, yes, some framers may have wanted electors to have discretion, but we cannot assume that all founders were of the same mind. And here I would like to point out that this is a perennial problem. If you take the claim or the approach of intent of the framers literally, you're always faced with the possibility that since there are many framers, their intentions varied. And sometimes you cannot even tell who the framers are, who should be considered a framer. Is it all 55 people who attended the convention, the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia? Or is it just the 42 delegates who stayed to the very end? Or is it just the 39 delegates who not just stayed but also signed the Constitution? Or is it also delegates to state conventions who ratified the Constitution and turned it from a simple document to an organic act of law? So all of these questions make it difficult, really, almost impossible, to appeal to the intent of the framers as if they were a single entity with the same mind. The Constitution is a constitution of many minds, and the framers often disagree. And she goes on to say that especially since the text of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, and the practice of presidential elections show the right of the states to constrain electors' votes. Now, concurrent opinion by Justice Thomas, which was joined in part by Justice Gorsuch, asserted that Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3 and the 12th Amendment, they're not sufficiently clear to conclude that the states may limit how an elector can vote. So according to Justice Thomas, the text of the Constitution, which specifically directs itself to Electoral College, doesn't really tell us how an elector may vote, whether or not he or she may exercise discretion. However, according to Justice Thomas, the 10th Amendment states that the powers not given by the Constitution to the federal or national government, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states or to the people. And this, he argues, means that since the power to appoint electors and is given to the states, not to the national government, and it's not prohibited to the states to decide whether or not to constrain how an elector may vote. And since it's not prohibited to the state to do so, the state may in fact do so. And here you see a number of references that you want to consult. Thank you very much, and I enjoyed recording this presentation for you. All the best to everyone.